Please stand and remain standing until after the presentation of the colors, the pledge, and the national anthem. Please join me now in the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now Mr. Hoffman will welcome us to the ceremony on behalf of the administration.
On behalf of Mr. Murray, it is with sincere pleasure to welcome each of you to our annual Veterans Day commemoration service. But first off, I'd certainly like to give thanks and a hearty thank you, and please join with me to thank the Vocal Jays under the direction of Mr. Bjorklund, and also the Merrill High School Band under the direction of Lauren Zunker. Please let's give them a big round of applause. I don't know about you, but I always get a little chill sitting up here just listening to them. I want to go marching around, after I hear some of that. I won't, but I do. I would like to welcome, again, all our veterans groups represented, invited guests, members of our community, our superintendent of schools, our Board of Education members, and each student, each teacher, and each staff member at Merrill High School. Additionally, I'd like to recognize the students that have come forward and have raised their right hand to the oath of the United States to defend our country. We have 3 of them that we'd like to recognize, so if you 3 are in the crowd, please stand and be recognized. Anthony Dujinski joined the United States Army this year. Colin Midgordon joined the United States Air Force. And Scott Haig, United States Army National Guard. Please give them a round of applause. Our guest speaker will be talking about serving our country and how each one of us can be doing that. But this past week, or last week, I had a young lady come forward, a freshman here at Merrill High School, come forward and ask if she could speak in front of all of you as a freshman what Veterans Day means to her. And so she was busily writing her speech, and she presented it to me, and I heartily said, let's bring her on board. So at this time, if I could have Tiama Betcher please come forward to give her Veterans Day speech.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the veterans that could be here for coming today. Now, I know that some of you know or knew people that are in the war, and it's not an easy thing to deal with, especially if they're your loved ones, and I know the feeling you all are feeling. I had a friend who less than a year ago went to fight in the war in Iraq and died from a roadside bomb. It hit me pretty hard. But you have to think of it as I do now. These soldiers were willing to fight for our country. They were willing to give up their lives for us. They were brave enough to go to war knowing about the death percentage of doing so. Yet still they went. Why? Not because they were forced to, not because someone told them to, but because they wanted to. Not everyone is brave enough to do that sort of thing. Actually, very few are that brave. But for those who are, I respect them and favor them. I want to be just like them. I'm planning on going into the National Guard in 2 years for my training. None of my friends want me to go, but I'm committed. I want to be able to fight for my country. I want to be remembered as an American soldier, not just some girl who talked about it. I want to be as brave as the veterans we have sitting here with us today, and as brave as the soldiers who cannot be here with us today, but with us in our hearts. Thanks for all you've done for our country. Thank you.
It's great to hear a young person speak so patriotic and so truly, and that is something that we should all think about as we go about today, and hopefully something that we thought about as we went through our day yesterday. Would you all please stand and join me for a moment of silence in commemorating all veterans who served, who or are serving the United States of America. Thank you. You may be seated. Will the following high school staff please stand and be recognized for their time and service? John Van Lieshout, United States Marine Corps. Al Schult, United States Air Force retired. Kenneth Radatz, United States National Army Guard. Mike Aruda, United States Marine Corps. Craig Hoffman, United States Navy and United States Army National Guard. And Steve Williams, United States Army. Thank you. Today it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Captain David Prokop. He enlisted in the United States Army in November of 1986. He was stationed at Fort Myer, Virginia, with the 3rd U.S. Infantry in the Honor Guard Company, where the primary focus was on the presidential ceremonies at the White House, Pentagon, Capitol, and surrounding areas. He went to the University of Oshkosh, where he received his Bachelor of Science in Communications and was commissioned as an infantry lieutenant in May 1996. He has served in the Wisconsin Army National Guard since '96 and has held several positions: infantry platoon leader, scout platoon leader, executive officer, company commander, and battle captain. He has recently assumed a second command, the HHC Brigade Special Troops Battalion in Wausau, which is a part of the 32nd Brigade Combat Team. He has also received several Army Commendation Awards and Army Achievement Awards.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right. I'm just going to apologize right off the beginning, and I've explained this earlier in the previous group. If I start talking too fast, it's because of my grandmother. My grandmother was married to a career Navy sailor for over 40 years, and during World War II, he was gone from 41 through 45. And in between times after that, when the fleet had to go out to the ocean, she had to get everything she could in as soon as possible before the fleet ramped back up and took off back to the Pacific and the Atlantic. So she speaks very fast, God rest her soul, and I've kind of taken up after that. And so if I get going too fast, you can blame it on her. But other than that, raise your hand and just tell me to slow down and take it back down into first gear when I'm cruising along in sixth, okay? Honor never grows old, and honor rejoices the heart of age. It does so because honor is, finally, about defending those worthy, noble, and worthy things that deserve defending, even if it comes at a high cost. In our time, it may mean social disapproval, public scorn, hardship, persecution, or, as always, even death itself. The question remains, what is worth defending, what is worth dying for, and what is worth living for? This question was posed to the United States Naval Academy at November 24th, 1997 by William J. Bennett. My name is Captain David Prokop. I'm with the Wisconsin Army National Guard. I'm an infantry officer with the 32nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team located at Camp Douglas, Wisconsin. I recently returned from the Kuwait and Iraqi Theater of Operations, and to stand before you this day on this day of remembrance and observations, this day of honor and gratitude, to try and say something worthy on Veterans Day is certainly humbling. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Craig Hoffman for asking me to speak today. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. But most of all, I'd sincerely like to thank all the veterans and their families, especially their families. Families have had a war of their own, the war on the home front. Times have changed from when we packed up our mess kit bags, windows would be blackened, and we grew victory gardens and bought war bonds. What used to take months to hear from our loved ones now merely takes minutes with the advantage of email. But the responsibilities of those who stayed behind, the family, and those who left, the soldier, this day would not have been possible had it not been for your efforts in keeping our country free. This is truly a home of the brave. I would like to start off with a couple of anecdotes relayed to me by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, the author of On Combat and On Killing, and it kind of enters into the mindset of the veteran. If there was a room of 100 people and someone let loose some of the world's most poisonous snakes, 95 of them would run towards the door. 2 would run towards those snakes to try and keep the other 95 from being bit. And the other 3, if you're asking, well, they're the smart ones. They're the ones who would head to the door but wait and then start selling tickets to the other 95 who are trying to get back in to see the other 2 get bit. Okay, good. We're all hitting on the same. Good, it's good to hear. The 2 who ran towards the snakes, in my mind, are the veterans. Those who run towards danger and the sound of the guns, for whatever reason, to ensure that the rest of the world is safe. Here's another example. Most of the people in our society are sheep. They are kind, gentle, productive creatures who can only hurt one another merely by accident. Some estimates say that 2 million Americans are victims of violent crimes every year, a tragic and staggering number, perhaps an all-time record rate of violent crime. But there are almost 300 million Americans, which means that the odds of being a victim of violent crime is considerably less than 1 in 100 in any given year. My math majors, you can figure that out. That's less than 1%, right? Okay, cool, thank you. Furthermore, since violent crimes are committed by repeat offenders, the actual number of violent citizens is considerably less than 2 million. Thus, there is the paradox, and we must grasp both ends of this. We may well be in one of the most violent times of our history, but violence is still remarkably rare. This is because the citizens are kind, decent people who are not capable of hurting each other except by accident or under extreme provocation. They are sheep. I mean nothing negative by calling them sheep. To me, it's like the pretty blue robin's egg. Inside it is a soft and gooey, but someday it will grow into something wonderful. But that egg cannot survive without its hard blue shell. Police officers, soldiers, and other warriors are like that shell. And someday the civilization they will protect will grow into something wonderful. For now, though, they need warriors to protect them from the predators. Then there are the wolves, the old veteran said, and the wolves feed on the sheep without mercy. If you believe there are wolves out there feeding on the flock without mercy, you'd better believe it. There are evil men in this world, and they are capable of evil deeds. The moment you forget or pretend it is not so, then you become a sheep. There is no safety in denial. And then there are the sheepdogs, he went on, and I'm a sheepdog. I live to protect the flock and confront the wolf. And as veterans, you and I are the sheepdogs that have protected the flock. If you have no capacity for violence, then you are a healthy, productive citizen, a sheep. If you have the capacity for violence and no empathy for your fellow citizens, then you are been defined as an aggressive sociopath or a wolf. But what of those of you who have the capacity for violence, but also have a deep love for your fellow citizens? What do you have then? A sheepdog, a warrior, someone who is walking the hero's path, someone who can walk into the heart of darkness, into the universal human phobia, and walk out unscathed. Let me expand on this old soldier's excellent motto, the sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. We know that sheep live in denial. That's what makes them sheep. They do not want to believe that there is evil in this world. They can accept the fact that fires happen, which is why they want fire extinguishers, fire sprinklers, fire alarms, and fire exits throughout their kids' schools. But many of them are outraged at the idea of having an armed police officer in their kids' schools or soldiers in the airports. Our children are thousands of times more likely to be killed or seriously injured by school violence than fire, but the sheep's only response to that possibility of violence is denial. The idea of someone coming to kill or harm them is just too great, so they choose that path of denial. The sheep generally do not like the sheepdog. He looks a lot like the wolf. He has fangs and the capacity for violence. The difference, though, is the sheepdog must not, cannot, and will not ever harm that sheep. Any sheepdog who intentionally harms the lowliest little lamb will be punished and removed. The world cannot work in any other way, at least not in a representative democracy or republic such as ours. Still, the sheepdog disturbs the sheep. He's a constant reminder that there are wolves in the land, that they would prefer that he didn't tell them where to go or give them tickets or stand at the ready in our airports in camouflage fatigues holding M16s. The sheepdog would much rather have the sheepdog cash in his fangs, spray paint himself white, and go bah. That is until the wolf shows up. Then the entire flock tries desperately to hide behind one lonely sheepdog. Look at what happened after September 11th, 2001, when the wolf pounded hard on our door. Remember how America, more than ever before, felt differently about their law enforcement officers and their military personnel? Remember how many times you have heard the word hero? Understand that there is nothing morally superior about being a sheepdog. It is just what you choose to be. Also understand that a sheepdog is a funny critter. He is always sniffing around on the perimeter, checking the breeze, barking at things that go bump in the night, and yearning for that righteous battle. Yet that is, the young sheepdogs yearn for the righteous battle of the older and younger ones. The older ones are actually a little older and a little wiser, but they move to the sound of the guns when needed, right along with the young sheepdogs. Here is how the sheep and the sheepdog think differently. The sheep pretend the wolf will never come, but the sheepdog lives for that day. After the attacks on September 11, 2001, most of the sheep, that is, most of the citizens of America said, "Thank God I wasn't on one of those planes." The sheepdogs, the warriors, said, "Dear God, I wish I could have been on one of those planes. Maybe I could have made a difference." When you are truly transformed into a warrior and have truly invested yourself in the warriorhood, you want to be there. You want to be able to make a difference. This is what serving is all about, is making a difference. Some people may be destined to be sheep, and others might be genetically primed to be wolves or sheepdogs. But I believe that most people can choose which one they want to be, and I'm proud to say that more and more Americans are rapidly choosing and becoming sheepdogs. 7 months after the attack on September 11, 2001, Todd Beamer was honored in his hometown of Cranberry, New Jersey. Todd, as you recall, was the man who was on Flight 93 over Pennsylvania, who called on his cell phone and talked to American Airlines and informed them of the hijacking. When he learned that the other 3 passenger planes had been used as weapons, Todd dropped his phone and uttered the words, "Let's roll," which authorities believe was a signal to the other passengers to confront the terrorist hijackers, and in 1 hour, a transformation occurred among the passengers. Athletes, business people, and parents, from sheep to sheepdog, and together they fought the wolves, ultimately saving an unknown number of lives on the ground. Edmund Burke has stated that there is no safety for honest men except by believing all possible evil of evil men. Here is the point that I would like to emphasize. In nature, the sheep, real sheep, are born as sheep. Sheepdogs are born that way, and so are the wolves. They didn't have a chance, but you are not a critter. As a human being, you can do whatever you want. It is a conscious and moral decision that you make. If you want to be a sheep, then you can be a sheep, and that is okay. But you understand that there's going to be a price to pay. When the wolf comes, and you and your loved ones are going to die if there's not a sheepdog there to protect you. If you want to be a wolf, you can be one, but the sheepdogs are going to hunt you down, and you will never have rest, safety, trust, or love for the rest of your life. But if you want to be a sheepdog and walk the warrior's path, then you must make a conscious and moral decision every day to dedicate, equip, and prepare yourself to thrive in that toxic, corrosive moment when the wolf comes knocking at the door. You have the ability, or have had the ability, to serve, in one way or another, your fellow men and women and society, to beat back the wolves that prey on the sheep, that lurk in the shadows, waiting to pounce on any given moment. It is a heavy burden to bear, a bottomless responsibility, and most times thankless. But the privilege of being a sheepdog is an honor not only to a few brave men and women who serve in our armed forces and in law enforcement. It is my distinct pleasure to be speaking in front of a room full of sheepdogs. Since the 1770s, when a ragtag group of citizen soldiers were formed into a militia that later became the Continental Army, has our country fought for freedom. We were oppressed once and invaded a short time after that. We have fought and sacrificed to ensure that we have the ability to be free. And Wisconsin has never failed this nation. In the 1800s, our country was nearly torn apart in regards to the issue of states' rights and slavery, but after the surrender of General Lee at the Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, our country stayed the course. Wisconsin sent 91,000 soldiers to various battlefields throughout the North and South, of which 12,200 made the ultimate sacrifice. The eagle that you see on the 101st Airborne Division patch is Old Abe, an eagle who was bought for a bushel of corn from Chief Sky and presented to Charlie Company of the 8th Wisconsin Army during the Civil War. Confederate snipers believe Old Abe to be such a powerful force that he was specifically targeted. A Confederate general, General Price, was heard to have said, "I would rather have him than a whole brigade." Old Abe was actually wounded twice, at the battles of Corinth and Vicksburg, before being mustered out with his unit in 1864. Wisconsin is a force to be reckoned with, and Wisconsin has never failed this nation. Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders charged up San Juan Hill in Cuba with the 10th Cavalry, the famous Buffalo Soldiers who passed through Wisconsin en route to fight the Spanish-American War. 5,469 soldiers from Wisconsin fought, with 126 making the ultimate sacrifice. Eventually leading us into World War I, the war to end all wars, Wisconsin proved itself again and again. 1,222,200 soldiers answered the call for our nation, with nearly 3,900 soldiers making the ultimate sacrifice. The 32nd Division, of which I'm a part of, was mustered and proved itself as formidable and tenacious as any unit that fought in the Great War. The 32nd Division was so named Les Terribles, the terrible ones, by the French, that the Huns feared because of the ferocious ability and determination on the battlefield. The Red Arrow was so named because we have penetrated every defense we have fought against, the arrow indicating our direction of attack and the line of defense that we penetrated. Additionally, all 4 infantry regiments, 3 artillery regiments, 3 machine gun battalions were decorated with the French Croix de Guerre with the Palm. We are the only National Guard unit to be decorated, or the only National Guard units to be decorated with the highest French award of the Croix de Guerre during World War I. Wisconsin has never failed this nation. In World War II, we again answered the call to arms. Initially sent to Louisiana, forward units of the 32nd Division landed on New Guinea and on September 15th, 1942. We, the 32nd Division, were the first Army division to fight an offensive operation against the Japanese in the South Pacific. The division fought in 6 major engagements and 4 campaigns, totaling 654 days of continuous combat, more than any other American division today. In fact, the 32nd was still engaging the Japanese Army after the ceasefire was ordered on 15 August 1945. The 32nd was also one of the first units to arrive on mainland Japan. Japanese Army of the Philippines surrendered to the 32nd on 2 September 1945. Again, our nation called, and again the sons and daughters of Wisconsin responded. In all, 332,200 soldiers went, 8,392 made the ultimate sacrifice. Wisconsin has never failed our nation. When turmoil erupted in the land of the morning calm, Korea, Wisconsin again marched to the sounds of battle. 132,000 served, 729 making the ultimate sacrifice. In fact, up the road a bit, in Tomahawk, we have a Medal of Honor recipient who resides there, Einar H. Ingman. The following excerpt is taken from the Medal of Honor, written by Peter Collier. Ingman served with the 17th Infantry Division while in Korea. Ingman was a member of patrol that ran into a dug-in Chinese enemy on a ridge above them near Malta Ri. After the key leadership of Ingman's patrol was hit by enemy fire, Ingman assumed leadership of the patrol, calling in tank and artillery fire. Ingman then raced up the hill after the enemy, then the remnants of his patrol following. Ingman himself charged into the enemy machine gun nest, destroying it. Fragments from a grenade that detonated near his head hit Ingman in his head. A Chinese soldier then leapt up, shooting Ingman in the face. Ingman then lost all his memory, but not the ability to fight. Ingman then raised himself up off the ground, emptying his clip and attacking the enemy with his bayonet. Shortly after that, Einar passed out. As a result of Ingman's actions, the enemy defenses were broken. His unit secured its objective, and over 100 enemy soldiers abandoned their weapons and fled to a disorganized retreat. Ingman regained consciousness in Tokyo 7 days later. We had lost the hearing in his left ear and the sight in his left eye. Ingman did not even remember the events of February 26, 1951. Ingman went to Battle Creek, Michigan, where he endured 23 more operations over a 2-year period. In the summer of 1951, Ingman was flown to Washington, D.C., where he would receive the Medal of Honor presented to him by President Harry Truman. Ingman received a new car, boat, and trailer upon his return to Tomahawk, and in true Wisconsin fashion, there was a huge muskie in the boat that had just been caught. The fish was then cooked, and everyone in town enjoyed Ingman in a grand feast. It's probably when the first fish fry started. Wisconsin has never failed this nation. When Southeast Asia was ripe with chaos and mayhem, Wisconsin again answered. In all, 165,000 soldiers served, with 1,200 making a sacrifice for freedom. Wisconsin has never failed its nation. Lebanon, Somalia, Operation Just Cause, and the Persian Gulf War, 12,000 have been called to arms, with 16 making the ultimate sacrifice. Finally, we have been in continuous support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. Wisconsin sons and daughters represent us well, both on active duty and in the National Guard and Reserves. We have represented Wisconsin, United States of America, extremely well. But this is difficult and dangerous work, and 8 Wisconsin National Guard soldiers have lost their lives during the past 5 years. 20-year-old Specialist Michelle Whitmer of New Berlin, the first Wisconsin National Guard soldier killed in action since World War II, and the first female to die in action in the 370-year history of the National Guard. Staff Sergeant Todd Olson of Loyal, killed the day after Christmas, 2004, after he arrived in Iraq with the 1st Battalion, 128th Infantry. Specialist Charles Kaufman of Fairchild, who died near Baghdad just over 2 years ago while serving with the 1st Battalion, 128th Infantry. 2 soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, 127th Infantry, which is my old unit, died together in southern Iraq in September 2005. Sergeant Andrew Wallace of Oshkosh and Specialist Michael Wendling from Mayville. Corporal Stephen Kastner from the 1st Battalion, 124th Field Artillery, died 1 year ago July on his very first mission into Iraq. And Sergeant Ryan Jopek of Merrill. Of the 2nd Battalion, 127th Infantry, another soldier from my own unit, died a few weeks later, August 2nd, and what was to have been, and sadly was indeed, his last mission. And Sergeant Rob Basham lost his life for about 9 months ago in a non-combat incident in Cotter. He had completed a full 1-year mission with the Wisconsin National Guard and volunteered for another year with the Kansas Guard unit. These were devastating losses to 8 fine Wisconsin families, and all of us in the Wisconsin National Guard share their griefs. Real quickly, when I was stationed in Iraq, I did have the ability to serve with Sergeant Jopek. While I was up there, he would come in on convoys, which is about the distance from here to Madison that they would travel. And I always knew where Ryan was because he had that big, toothy, goofy grin that he just flashed no matter what. and you could be yelling at him and telling him to get his vehicle going, and he'd just be smiling like you wouldn't believe. And it would be pitch black out there in the Iraqi darkness, and I always knew who was up behind the main gun because I'd see that smile, and I knew it was Joe Peck. And I'd walk by, and I'd be like, Joe Peck! He'd look down at me, and he'd be like, Captain Prokop! I'm like, all right, buddy. You just make sure that gun is manned, and you're protecting your troops over there, all right? Ryan was definitely loved by all of his soldiers, especially the guys that were on his crew inside that vehicle. I know he loved them just as much as they loved him. And Ryan was a good guy, and it really was a definite pleasure to have served with Ryan while over in Iraq. But I'm digressing here. But know this: nearly everyone who knew the Red Arrow was, everyone knew who the Red Arrow was in Iraq. Our arrow was in the armored Humvees, supporting coalition forces and bringing freedom to the Iraqi citizens. Anybody who sees the Bucky Badger and the Red Arrow automatically knew they were in good hands, in the clutches of the sons and daughters of Wisconsin. Wisconsin has never failed this nation. Veterans Day was created after World War I to honor us, those who have answered the call to the guns and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. The loved ones and friends and buddies are never coming back. But they are always here in spirit, and sometimes you can hear them talk to you, nurture you, and guide you, to let them know that they are okay and that you will be too. To this date, since the Civil War to Somalia, over 750,000 soldiers from Wisconsin have served in various wars and conflicts, and never failing our nation. Of those, 25,000 have made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, and over 80 have died since September 11th, 2001. Of the 25,000 making the ultimate sacrifice, 61 have earned a Congressional Medal of Honor, which is our nation's highest award. This medal has been awarded to members of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines that were from Wisconsin. In recent years, there's been a segment of society that does not like to use the term warrior. For them, the noble heritage of the Knight Paladin is not what they think of when they hear the word. They are not bad people, but they just don't understand. So let us all work together to help them see that in a republic or representative democracy such as ours, the role of the warrior is not to kill. It is to protect, preserve, and defend. Yes, upon occasion, peaceful warriors may be called upon to take a human life, but that is never our goal. The goal of the moral warriors can be best summed up in one last model for action, one final true story, which was again related to me from Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. This is not a story about killing. Killing is what we do if we must, and if we must do it, we do it very well. Nor is this a story about dying. Dying is what we do if we must, and if we must, we also do that well too. This is just a simple story of a young warrior standing in the snow. During the Battle of the Bulge, the Nazi SS spearhead units had broken through the American lines in the Ardennes forest in December of 1944, and the demoralized American units were fleeing in terror down the little roads out of the Ardennes forest with the Nazis hot on their heels. The 82nd Airborne had been brought out of reserve to help stop the enemy advance. The paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne marched day and night to establish blocking positions and on the roads throughout the Ardennes forest, and they had the mission, the authority, and the responsibility to rally together the fleeing Americans and stop the Nazi advance. And that is exactly what they did. There was an American tank, 30 tons of death, fleeing down one of the little roads leading out of the forest. One lonely paratrooper stood beside the road. The photographer captured the image of this young man with hollow sunken eyes, a 3-day growth of beard, an M1 Garand in one hand, and a bazooka slung over his shoulder. He raised his hand to stop the fleeing tank. After the tank had ground to a halt, the weary paratrooper looked up at the tank commander and asked him, "Buddy, are you looking for a safe place?" And the tank commander replied, "Yes, sir, I am." "Now park your tank behind me, because I'm the 82nd Airborne, and this is as far as the enemy is going to get." If I were a betting man, I'd say that guy was from Wisconsin. Do you understand how the story applies to you, my fellow warriors? And I include the citizens of Wisconsin and the families of soldiers, because you are warriors for a just society. For the rest of your lives, you're going to be facing people who are fleeing. They'll be fleeing drugs, crime, poverty, violence, terrorism, and the fear that lurks in the hearts of every man and woman. And you have the mission, the authority, and the responsibility to stand up and say, "Friend, neighbor, brother, sister, buddy, are you looking for a safe place?" And they will say yes. So you tell them, "Then get behind me, because I'm a cop, because I'm a soldier, because I'm a citizen, and I'm a warrior, and this is as far as the enemy is going to get." You see, it's not about killing, and it's not about dying. We are not all called to kill, and we're not all called to die, but we've been called to serve our civilization in some very dark hours. It's about preserving and protecting. It's about serving and sacrificing. It's about doing a dirty, desperate, thankless job every day of your life to the utmost of your ability, because you know that if no one else did that job, our civilization would be doomed. So now as you do that for the rest of your lives, may God bless you, your service, and the sacrifices of you and your families. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Prokop, for coming today, and thanks a lot for your very inspirational words. After the band selection, the playing of taps, and the retiring of the colors, and the ringing of the bells, we ask that you leave your seats in complete silence as a final way to commemorate all the veterans of all of our wars and of all of our conflicts. Thank you.